Hello, welcome to another episode of the Horror Vision Presents Murderboard, a true detective night country discussion. I am Sean,
And I'm Missy.
and let's just start by saying Travis fucking Cole.
I was so happy to hear that name. I mean, I haven't read anything. Do you think there's any possibility he could show up?
I mean, who knows? But I mean, they're both, McConaughey and Harrelson are both still producers or executive producers. So maybe, I mean, I'm not gonna assume that, but the thought did cross my mind.
Hmm.
Okay, for the listeners, obviously we both had our reservations about the first episode, and I stand by my reservations. And like both of us said, it's still just the first episode. It may, maybe we're gonna change our tune as soon as it gets going, and I'm changing my tune officially.
Yeah, me too. Um, I rewatched the first episode this morning,
Okay.
and and I feel like it's got a Yellow Jacket season two kind of vibe, where you got to watch it a second time and it'll feel a whole lot better.
Okay.
Because I had a much more favorable reaction to it the second time around. I mean, part of that could have also been that on first watch, I just, because we both love season one, it's, we both had expectations, and that first episode did not meet them. Although second time around, it did feel a lot better.
Well, yes, but I also think, and I know you haven't seen season two or all of season three, but you've heard
Right.
me and other people bitch about it. I think it's not just that season one leaves expectations of greatness that are hard to match, but also season two left a pretty shitty taste in everybody's mouth. And season three,
Hmm.
like it has its ups and downs. But so that's what I meant when I started last episode of this show, saying I think maybe this is a cursed show. And I don't, generally I want to like, if I like something, I want to like it. I'm not the kind of person that is like, I'm going to go in there like, pick this apart. Like please, I'm willing to
Right.
afford, but I got to call it like I see it. And I feel like they really hedged their bets on the first episode. And, it's like the card player that looks like he's down and out. And then at the end, like throws out a full house or a pair or something, like they played that first episode really close to the chest, and so it was a little frustrating. And then this episode, I mean, we got the Travis Cole thing within the first 10 minutes, maybe, and I was
Hmm.
like, okay, you'd really have to piss me off for me not to like that right
And we
there
got
means I'm on your side.
same, but we got the spiral before that because we saw it on the frozen guy's head, and you saw it well. And as soon as I saw that, and it connects it to the original first season story, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm in. And then when they mentioned Travis Cole, which for anybody listening, we're connecting him to Rust Cole from
It's definite,
season one.
definite. I mean, I
But
don't remember if Rust. So somebody in our comment section, thank you for all the listeners and the commenters. Um, Somebody called out the fact that they remembered Rust in season one saying he lived in Alaska for a while. That sounds
he
right to
did.
me. I don't remember, but I trust that
So I
person
remember that.
100%. Okay.
I remember that. As soon as he said it, or as soon as they said it, I remembered it.
So,
So that's right on. He did. Rust was in Alaska for, I don't remember how long he lived there, but he does mention at some point that he lived in Alaska for a time.
it's really interesting then. So I expressed a reservation last time that like, okay, they always skirted the supernatural. Now I felt like they were going to like swing the other way too far and it was going to be like crazy supernatural. I don't feel like that. What I actually feel watching this episode, and of course, like, all bets, like with the next episode, who knows? Like, we're just going episode by episode, so nobody knows what's going to happen. We got so much of the spiral, and not in an egregious way. Like they were really. I really liked all of the things that they gave us in this episode and the way they gave it to us, i.e., they mentioned Travis Cole. If you know, you make the connection, right?
Hmm.
But they don't say like that's all you got. Like they didn't say, oh, and his brother was a cop who blah blah blah. Like they literally just say the last name. If you picked up on it, you picked up on it. If you didn't, you didn't. And there was no more talk of Travis Cole or anything else.
And if you were like the guy who plays Travis, definitely looks like he could
Yes,
be
yes.
related. Like I didn't, as soon as they said Travis Cole, and then they flash a picture of like
It was him
him
and
with
her laying in
Rose.
bed smoking a joint.
Yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, he definitely like he looks like he could be his
Yeah,
older brother or something.
100%. But so I appreciated the fact that they didn't overplay that. And the eye, or I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the spiral, even though we got a lot of it, I didn't feel like they overplayed that either. So we
No.
see that it's on one of the science, frozen scientists' head. And then
Mm-hmm.
uh, Fiona Shaw's character, then like her and Navarro talk about it, and she draws it in the snow and says,
Mm-hmm.
like, that's older than Ennis.
Right.
And then we got the whole thing with the tattoo, right, at the end.
Right.
And the fact that, well, we'll get to the end, but so what it made me think of in season one is what we've been talking about both on the last episode and in the comments on the first episode on YouTube. The idea that like they definitely with the first season, and again, another one of the listeners that commented, I don't have it in front of me, but put it rather eloquently, which I will now butcher it in a paraphrase, but basically said like they definitely like introduced the idea of the supernatural, but immediately undercut it with like Cole's drug psychosis, his mental illness, his depression, whatever, and Cole talks a lot about that, about how he did the drug detail undercover and was fried. And so that is where you get, like maybe the second or third time I watched the first season, I realized like, okay, there's a scene where he sees the spiral, but the birds are making it in the sky, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or when he fights the fucking inbred dude in the last episode, there's a moment where they both see some kind of like portal or something, but you don't really know if they both see it. You don't know if it's Cole seeing it because he's fried. You
Right.
don't know if it's really there. So I feel like they're actually kind of saying, yeah, no, that shit was there. Like if
Mm-hmm.
that eye is older than Ennis,
Right.
then it's very possibly tied to some larger force, which could make the birds do that.
Oh, right. And they keep pointing out that Ennis is a weird place. Like they say it multiple times in this episode.
Hmm.
There are several people who see dead people, not just Rose seeing Travis.
No, even I think it's Ellis is the supply guy that like in the first season or I'm sorry, in the first episode he went and it was the one that discovered that the scientists were missing. And
Mm-hmm.
he says to Peter when he's questioning him, he's like, "You saw somebody?" He's like, "Well, I thought I saw somebody, but I didn't see somebody." He's like, "Well, wait, this is important." He's like, "Peter, you grew up here, you know this. People see
Right.
people that aren't there anymore. Couple people say it.
Because Kavik says it to Navarro at one point
Yep.
too, when they're talking about her sister.
Fiona Shaw's character, who I'm going to have to learn the name of the character. I forget what it
Rose.
is, but
Her
Rose,
name
there
is
you go.
Rose.
Thank you. She says, and I wrote this down because I was like, damn, I love this quote just as a quote, but also what
I
it
bet we
like.
wrote down the same quote. Go ahead.
I I think the world is getting old, and Ennis is where the fabric of all things is coming apart at the seams.
That's not the one I wrote down,
Oh, what'd you
but
write
it
down?
also came from Rose. Um, the dead, some of them come back because they miss you.
Yep.
Some come back to tell you something that you needed to hear, and some come back because they want to take them with you. You need to know how to tell the difference.
Yeah. So her character is good. Like she's kind of like the shaman for like the
Mm-hmm.
uh I think it's the half man, I think is a terminology in like some of the screenwriting vernacular,
Okay.
but like the shaman character. So she's
Right.
obviously prophetic in some way. And
Yeah, it's nuts because the the first episode, the first time I watched it, seemed so draggy, and this one was not draggy at all.
No.
Like, and I feel like it gave us everything we wanted without giving too much.
Yep.
And I really like they're building a lot of layers into both the Navarro character and the Danvers character.
Hmm.
I was lukewarm on Jodie Foster last episode, but I thought she was really, really good
Yeah,
in this
I
one.
agree.
We got a lot of answers about her character. I really like her interactions with Peter. They have good chemistry together, and she's you're seeing more like while she is kind of this heinous bitch, a lot of it's a front. It's not because she looked into that case. She told Navarro she didn't, but she
Yeah.
did.
Yep.
Because I forget what they share at one point, but like Navarro even says, so you did look into it. That might have been
Yeah.
the end of episode one, actually, because I
I
watched
think
that
it
earlier
was.
today.
Yeah.
But like, she did look into it. And when she did get confirmation that the cases were connected, she went to Navarro and included her anyways. Like that's a lot of strength of character. Even though they don't work well together, they don't like each other, but she admitted that she was wrong, and looped her back in anyhow. And they're gonna try.
And it's a lot like it has like harmonic resonance with Cole and Woody Harrelson's character
Mm-hmm.
because they work together and then there's a big fallout obviously with them like you
Right.
know and then they come back together so it's a similar thing but it also doesn't feel like they're just strictly trying to recreate the exact same chemistry, so that's good too, like
Well, and there was something between them. Like they have a closer relationship than we know.
she knows
Because
where
when
canned goods go.
right, exactly. Exactly. I caught that too. Like they were either really close friends or they were a thing because it seems like Chief Danvers got around.
Yeah, total, which I did, you don't expect, but that's where what you said about the front, like she's not quite as like the ice queen as she likes the vibe she likes to throw out, obviously.
Right. And even when we see the memory when her daughter is talking to when Leah is talking with Deputy Pete and she's talking about her dad and how they used to dance and they used
Yeah.
to smoke weed, and you see this flashback and she looks like a completely different person because she's happy. They made her feel like a real person and not just okay, she's the ice queen bitchy chief.
Yeah, exactly.
And Navarro's awesome. Like
Yeah, I
she's
really
got
like her.
balls. I like her a lot.
Okay,
Um,
so you mentioned the flashback.
mhm.
What did you think of the other flashback where Navarro is driving, finds the cross necklace, and I couldn't tell who was what in that scene where it's like a woman screaming,
I
pointing,
think
and
it's
then
her
like a little
mom.
girl.
I think it's her mother because
Yes.
when because you see an older girl holding a younger girl, so that's probably uh Navarro and the sister. Mom is like convulsing or something, and we see her chuck the cross out, and I think so. I'm assuming the cross belonged to her mom.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, what do you think? All right, last episode you had mentioned the she's awake, and I missed it on my initial watch because it was late and I was tired and whatever. But when I rewatched it this morning, um, all right, it she's awake happens 3 times through that episode.
So it's Clark, right, in the station at the beginning. Then it's
Uh-huh.
Navarro driving.
And that's when she sees the polar bear. Right before she sees the polar bear, but that's the third time. The second time is Danvers is asleep. She's dreaming. And we see like a hand on her, like a little kid's hand on her shoulder. And she hears she's awake and she goes, Holden. And then she wakes up.
Interesting.
What? So, I mean, see, I think that, and the little, and when we see a flash later of her and a little kid, he looks native. So I think that her husband and that and that they had a small child. The husband and the small child died somehow.
Okay. That
That's
makes
just a
sense.
theory. I think they died, and that's probably when she started becoming this other person. But the thing is, like you could very clearly see this hand on her shoulder, and you hear that she's awake, and then she comes out of the dream. Like Ennis is a thin spot, and people keep
Yeah.
seeing dead people.
So the now I'm gonna jump to the end where they find the trailer, right? And in the trailer,
Yeah,
so well, no, first when so okay, we're doing like a dual edit where we're following Navarro's at Kavix. They figure out, oh, the Nook where the trailer is, she
right.
deduces that, right? Which I really like the way they spun that out of her using Danvers, like, no, we're not asking the right
I
question. What
did
do you mean?
too.
That's not what Danvers would say. Like, I really like that.
I really liked both of those scenes, actually, the ones about the
Yeah.
right questions. Because earlier in the episode, she's doing that with Deputy Peter,
Yes.
and they're working through stuff together, and she keeps telling him, "All right, ask the questions," and she tell, "Okay, you're not asking the right question," and he'd
Right.
think in a different direction. And it's kind of similar to how Cole used to process things.
I was thinking the same thing. In fact, I was wondering, like, did we ever hear him say that? Like, I couldn't
We
remember
may have,
specifically. Okay.
but I don't remember specifically either. Although all of the talk we've been doing, I'm probably going to start a rewatch of season one in the interim and see what I see. Um,
Yeah.
just since I'm nocturnal anyway.
I mean,
I don't.
if I could do it right now, I'm still in a hotel. So if I could do it, I would totally be doing it right fucking now.
It's on HBO.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm always like at the precipice of rewatching it. That's how much I like it. Like
Same,
anytime
me
I
too.
see or anything reminds me of it, I'm like, oh, I should
Hmm.
rewatch it.
I always go back
Um,
to it.
yeah. So, but so you've got Navarro at Kavix figures this out, goes to the trailer, figures out Clark was fucking Anne at the trailer, right? And then
Right,
concurrently, we've got Danvers
Danvers.
looking through Clark's like journals or whatever,
Is that what that
and
was? I
I
was going to
believe
ask you
so.
what that was and where she got it.
I I think it was the stuff that Pete took from his dad,
Okay,
but I'm not positive. I think that's what it was though. But in there, it starts out it's and earlier we learned that Salal is not like other research stations. They don't rotate people in and rotate people out. It's these people have been here for years, right?
and they
And
don't leave.
they don't, right? And what they're doing is they're trying to sequence the DNA of an extinct microorganism that could potentially stop cellular decay. So that's interesting because extinct microorganism, this is fitting right into kind of weird fiction territory, right? So she's looking through the notebooks. They look like scientific notebooks of some, there's like some very like some words that are obviously like the genus or whatever names of, like scientific names of things. And then you get his scribbles, which are many, and say, oh God, never say her name. I can hear her moving her fingers, cold, dark eyes. I can hear her calling. Her eyes, her face, her eyes, her face. And it's just all that shit is written multiple times in weird designs. In the middle of the page is what looks like he drew eyes, right? Where it says cold,
Okay,
dark eyes.
right. Well, and again, here's the last episode. It was she's awake, and now
Her.
her. Who is she?
So then when they find the murder board adequately, or whatever it is in Clark's trailer. And now moments after they find this, we realize he's alive. All over the wall, there's pictures of we're assuming are him and Anne, Clark and Anne, lots of them, and of Anne or a woman. And then you can't really, like, I couldn't make out all of it, but there's come back, don't go, all gone, turn back time. And there's a bunch of other stuff too, but that's what I could make out. There was some
Okay.
stuff where I was like, there was something that said like until now, but I couldn't tell it was something until now, but it was partially covered by a
Okay.
picture.
I didn't catch
Um,
the words. I was distracted by all the animals, the dead animal parts,
yeah.
and then there's, I don't know if it's a body or a big effigy, but there's like a giant voodoo doll looking thing in the bed,
Right. So
the size of a person.
I was going to ask you what, because I couldn't tell if it was a body or
I
an
can't tell.
effigy.
I was trying to pause it because it could be a body in like a funeral shroud and then all tied up and wrapped with, because it has all kinds of like string and wrapping and
Yeah.
feathers and things. But it could also be an effigy that's just like body size.
I'm thinking it might be an effigy simply because
I
they
think so
left
too.
there. They
Mm-hmm.
left there and didn't like call in for like a crime scene, right? Like I feel like unless they just didn't show us that, that would have been as soon as they were going to be called away, they would have immediately like called in a crime scene to lock that down first, especially knowing now, deducing that, well, I guess they deduce he's alive after that when they get called away by Peter to the ice rink where the bodies are thawing,
Mm-hmm.
and they're what they count the bodies and like, well, Clark, and then
Right.
Navarro's like, no, he's alive.
Well, how many people disappeared from the research station? Because I thought they had said 8 initially, or maybe it's
May
7.
it, I'm not sure. I felt like I thought I heard seven, but I'm not positive. But
Okay.
I know that they've deduced somebody's missing because when they
There
get
are
to that
6
end
in the
scene, they're like,
ice.
there's only six.
Yeah, 6 in the ice.
And obviously the intimation, because there's a conversation earlier, like with that scene with Pete and Danvers, right? You're not asking the right questions where he's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
the killer. She's like, ah, so there's a killer. And then they follow
Right.
that train of thought, and they're trying to figure out why were the clothes folded? Did he fold them? Did he make them?
Mm-hmm.
So we're led to believe now at this point through deduction that
That Clark was the
would have
person who
been,
did those things, and that
yeah,
he's the one who walked away.
right.
At least one person. I mean, I swear I thought they said 8, but maybe I'm wrong.
You could be right. You definitely could be right. Um, okay, between those two scenes, so they get the call, they're in the trailer in the Nook. They get the call from Pete to go to the ice rink. It cuts to outside the trailer where there's a snowdrift up to the window, and you hear this like weird chanting, or I forget what I always watch stuff with subtitles. It said like eerie.
Yeah,
It
I always
wasn't.
have the subtitle too.
So there was something going on, and I couldn't tell if it was supposed to be music, like atmosphere, or if it was actually something that we were supposed to intuit was like.
I don't know. I know the scene, but I didn't hear anything.
So, but then as they pan away from well, they don't pan away, they cut. So you've got this sound with the snowdrift up to the window of the trailer. You cut, there's a fucking severed ram's head hanging on the
Mm-hmm.
wall, and then like a
And then an
raven or
upside down
something.
raven. And the
Ups,
raven's hung upside down by its feet.
where was that?
I think it was the outside of the trailer.
Okay, because I didn't feel like the edit there made that clear because I couldn't tell. Because then I'm like, wait, is this a new location? But then they're at the ice rink. I'm like, well, okay, we didn't see that, so it must have been at the trailer.
I think it was just a weird cut.
Okay,
I think it's the outside of the trailer.
I
Um,
mean, it would make sense with all the
it
bones, right?
doesn't make sense for it to be anything else. But I do think it was a strange cut
There's
because I
caribou
had that
bones.
thought for mm-hmm, caribou, especially since there were all kinds of inside the trailer. There were bones. Um, And Navarro says something about caribou bones. There's all kinds of feathers and like tiny bones and skulls and things just everywhere.
It was like seal bones, caribou
Seal
bones.
bones, yeah, that's what she said. She called out both seal and caribou. Navarro did.
So, okay, then the other thing that I need to hear your take on. So we get the scene where Danvers calls the tattoo place and she's like, "Oh yeah, she sends the picture, the tattoo artist sends the picture of him,
Mm-hmm.
Clark, with the tattoo on his chest that she had just done in 2017. And then she's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, and here's the model for it. And you don't see it, but
Mm-hmm.
they cut. And immediately I'm like, it's Anne, because that's whatever is this moment is where we have to get them working together. And the only way to get
Mm-hmm.
Navarro and Danvers working together is if their cases connect. And so obviously,
Well,
so then it was.
and then you see another picture where you see her with him and the tattoo is on
Yes.
her back.
So that was the picture we didn't see in the pre. So that's the
That's
model,
how
right?
I that's how I took it
So Anne had the tattoo first,
first.
and Clark used that and went and got it tattooed on his chest. But here's my question. When she shows that to Navarro, when Danvers shows that to Navarro, she says, this is 4 days after she died. So I didn't understand what they were
I
saying there
remember
because
her saying that.
I'm like,
I
is he
remember
holding up a
I'm
corpse?
I don't know.
Or are they
I
saying
remember
that?
her saying it, but my brain, I mean, I think I took it as it was 4 days before she died, but that doesn't make sense. So maybe it was a corpse.
Well, 4 days before she died would make sense. 4 days after
Right.
she died makes no
But
sense.
right. And I think that's how it was said. I think I just processed it
Right,
backwards because that made more sense.
right.
So maybe she was dead because she says you wouldn't believe the model.
So okay,
I
so
don't know.
this is something definitely for a second viewing and going forward
Hmm.
because
Yeah,
there's a
we'll have to
lot
watch
that
that
pin
scene again.
there's a lot that hinges on what exactly that means. And we may not know what that means even if we rewatch it, but I know she
Hmm.
said it's 4 days after she died.
She did, but my brain just took it backwards.
So
And
that's
I
a
didn't think of
really
it until you just called it out.
it was kind of well, and because it was another thing where they said it and it didn't they didn't make a big deal about it. Like it was said in a way that was like obviously she was stating it with it was serious and like a little bit what the fuck, but not enough. And by that time the episode's moving quickly enough where it's like on to the next
Hmm.
thing, right? So yeah, I don't know. That is I feel like the crux of where we're
Yeah,
going.
we'll both need to take another look at that. Um, the beginning again. I mean, obviously they've got some heavy Thing vibes going on, especially when the dude woke up. He
Oh,
starts
yes.
screaming like, "What the fuck?"
Let's talk about that. Like it,
That
that was
scared the
cool.
crap out of me. I was not expecting that.
A, a very thing, very, a lot of thing vibes, but all like
And then you keep seeing the dogs, and it just kept making me think of it. And I'm like, "Oh God, please don't hurt the dogs."
it, I, I was the way the episode started, like the other cop, like the cops taking like the selfie or whatever, and then like the one cop accidentally breaks the fucking arm off, right? And like John Hawk's character's like, oh, they're just blowing off steam or whatever. And I was like, okay, the tone
What
of
the
this
fuck is
episode,
up with him?
I don't know. He's a dick. He's he's a total. I don't know.
He's so creepy, and he undermines her every chance he gets.
He
And
does.
then, I mean, and then he shows up and like I think he cracked Peter in the face with like a 2x4 or a
It
baseball
was
bat.
something. He didn't punch him with his hand. I didn't catch what it was, but I was like, holy
Neither did
shit.
I.
Uh,
Like,
but and also he was like texting somebody, right? But like I got the feeling he might be being catfished because she's
he
like, I'm
is.
just
It's
worried about
bullshit.
mom, and he's like, oh, I'll just send you some more money or
I'll just
whatever.
send you more money.
But then she's like, send me more pics, and he goes over and takes a picture of himself when he's like, it looked like he was younger and with his family. So I was like, what the fuck? What is the game here?
Well, in episode 1, he was talking about his mail order bride or something. Like he's getting
Oh,
some like Russian bride or something.
That's right.
and everybody thinks it's bullshit. And he's totally getting scammed because she's asking him for for money, and and he's sending all these hearts and whatnot. Like he's they're either milking him for information, money, or both.
Well, and so I mean, I don't know if it ties together, but one of the guys they make a point of talking about how one of the guys on the team that's frozen is Russian, right? So
Mm-hmm.
then Hawks has a Russian bride, quote unquote. So I don't know. There's a lot of little moving pieces, and it's some of it is like there's like the who's fucking who thing, but also like all of that creates a larger tapestry of this
Mm-hmm.
really small, like insular bedroom community. And I don't know, it's really interesting.
It is. It is. And it also has kind of a weird sense of humor because I was fucking dying when they're bringing the bodies to the hockey rink.
Yeah,
It's blizzarding. They're playing the Beach Boys, and it's a
yes,
Christmas song. It's the Beach Boys Christmas song. And they've got all these frozen bodies like wrapped up in a big tarp, and it looks like it, it's like this morbid frozen parade from hell
yeah.
to this Beach Boys Christmas song.
It's a weird soundtrack so far this season. Like like Casey and the Sunshine Band, but then they used two songs by Agnes Obel, who I quite like, and I was like, oh, is it Agnes Obel? And those are
Okay,
like
I
the
don't know.
haunting piano. It's like she's always
Okay.
like piano and vocal. Um, but yeah, I don't. I mean, now there's also this whole thing with the mine poisoning the water, and so there's like a rift in the community
Oh yeah,
between.
yeah.
So
I forgot about that. But and that is, I mean, and it initially it sounded like that is probably why Annie was killed to begin with. She was protesting the mine, and the mine people didn't like it, and they didn't like her, and they don't like Navarro because she's still
yeah, digging around
fucking
for
around
who.
it.
I gotta wonder if so all this digging, right? And we're going into this. Again, it's similar to the thing, but it goes back to Mountains of Madness and just in general, like there's stuff frozen in the earth that predates
Mm-hmm.
humanity, right? So I gotta wonder if now we know that Annie and Clark were a thing, and they both have the tattoo, and she had the tattoo first. So I'm curious if he had questions about something he found. He talked to her, and she had some kind of a belief in some ages old thing that then he became obsessed with. He gets the tattoo. She's protesting them digging in the mine because maybe she's like, you shouldn't fuck with what's frozen down there.
Mm.
Somebody, so either somebody kills her because she's protesting, or did Clark kill her because I mean, I'm getting the vibe that maybe there's like a sacrifice involved with these other scientists or
Mm-hmm.
something. I don't know, but I mean, they've laid groundwork for quite the mystery.
Right, and they keep she's awake could be like some kind of goddess, some kind of old god that
Yeah.
they're making sacrifices to. And all right, there's all right, John Hawks, right?
Hmm.
That's his name, Pete
Hmm.
Bottoms. Okay, when he goes and hits Peter with the 2x4, and he I forget how he says it. I should have wrote it down. Um, but he tells him to to stop messing around with Danvers. She's not your blood. Something about old blood. Like,
I think he's basically says like something to the degree of like family's your blood, not her, or
right.
something.
Mm-hmm. And he's talking about something about being true to your blood. And
Well,
it feels like it's something old the way he's
maybe
saying it. Like I
that could
mean,
be.
I don't know. I got like a I don't think he was only talking about family.
Okay.
I got like an occult connotation from it,
Ooh.
and I, mean, it's just in like, like, I got like an occult connotation from it, and I mean, it's just in like, like, I got like an occult connotation from it, and I mean, it's just in like, like, I got like an occult connotation from it, and I mean, it's just in like, like, I got like an occult connotation from it, and I mean, it's just in like, like, It's not something specifically he said. It's just in
The
intuition.
vibe. Well, it would
Yeah,
fit. I mean, the idea that he
he's
does undercut
weird.
Danvers.
There's something so he's tuned into something weird, and not like good weird.
Yeah, I could see that. Um, what about the so and this is like freaking me out a little bit because it's giving me a little bit of Lost vibes, which just is unavoidable. But so somebody saw the polar bear in the last episode. Who saw was it Navarro?
Yep. Well, Navarro saw the polar bear in the first episode, and it's a one-eyed polar bear.
Yeah.
Um, Danvers, her little boy that she's dreaming about, had a. I think I'm assuming it was his polar bear because she sleeps with it, and then later she puts it in the box.
Yeah.
Um, and I looked up polar bear totems. I use one of the books I use, Animal Spirit Guides by Stephen D. Farmer. Um, Polar bear, messenger of change. It comes to you when you're in need of renewal and reorganization. And the polar bear spirit guide is an ally that'll encourage you to make decisions, move forward, and be proactive instead of waiting,
Interesting.
which definitely, you know, like that definitely fits Navarro. It also feels, it also kind of fits Danvers, and we're seeing polar bear imagery with both of them.
Yes.
And the, I mean, again, the the animal spirits are important. Uh, like they call it out twice in the first episode. Danvers makes comments to, I mean, they're like snarky comments, but she makes comments twice to Navarro about, oh, did your spirit guide tell you in your dreams and stuff
Oh
like that.
yeah.
And then I forget what the comment was in this because I just watched it and then we jumped online. Um, but she mentions it again. Like they keep calling it to attention. Um, so I keep really trying to pay attention to what animals I see. But the polar bear is definitely prominent. Um, and who knows, maybe Navarro may have a connection with the animals. Obviously, there are several people here who have connections with the dead, her sister being one of them.
Yeah.
And uh, the lighthouse, like that sounds weird and Lovecrafty.
Yeah. Was there another mention like what were they specifically referring to? Do you know?
Yeah, it's some kind of treatment center.
Oh, that's what it
Navarro
was. That's what
actually,
it was.
Rose mentions it to Navarro in the beginning of the episode
Yes.
that maybe you should talk to the people at the lighthouse. She says, um, don't, don't confuse the spirit world with mental illness
Yes.
or with mental health issues. You should talk to the people at the lighthouse. And then when she tries to broach the subject with her sister, she gets upset and says, no, I
Yeah.
don't want to go back to one of those kind of places. But and Navarro says it's not a hospital, it's
The
some
community
kind of
center.
it's a community, yeah, it's a community center. That makes it sound culty.
That's really interesting too, because like unrelated. I mean, I mean, all bets are off going forward, but I'm on the third book of Jeff Vandermeer's Southern Reach trilogy, which is Annihilation, which was the movie that came out in 2017. And then
The one with the fucked up bear,
yeah,
that one.
uh
Okay, I love that
that
movie.
and then the second one is Authority, and the third one I'm on now is Acceptance. And the lighthouse, like the lighthouse is like for the rest of my life, when I hear the word lighthouse, I'll think of these books.
Okay.
Like it just figures in, but it's also about almost exactly. I think the world is getting old, and this is where the fabric of all things are coming apart. It seems like it's all about the point in the world which in the movie they call the shimmer. They don't use that terminology in the book, but
Oh,
this
okay.
this area X is like basically where we don't really know what it is yet. I don't know that we're ever going to know, but it's like this, whatever it is basically like like it's either destroying or changing or whatever the world as we know it. So there's like a little bit of a dovetail. So as soon as I heard Lighthouse, it just, and then some of the themes of the show fit with the book. So I was like, oh, wow, weird. So it's always nice when that happens. I mean, I don't think it's going to really draw on these books, but it's
Right.
just interesting.
It's just a connection.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel much, much better about this episode than I did the last one.
Yeah, same. Oh man, I can't wait. So the next week, I fly home on Monday morning. So for listeners, we will probably record this Monday night and I will try to get it up Monday night. It might go up Tuesday morning. So we might be a day later next week, just depending on how everything works out. So I'll probably actually buy internet on the fucking plane so I could watch the episode on the plane on Monday, even if I watch it Sunday. But I'm probably won't be able to watch it Sunday either. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't figured that out. But anyway, so we might be a week later. But if you're listening to
A
this,
day
this is
later,
Monday
not a week
morning.
later.
I mean a day later. Sorry. See, the fabric of everything's coming apart in my head. Any closing thoughts on episode 2 before we call it?
No, just that now I'm looking forward to the next one.
I'm psyched. I can't wait. Like, I
Yeah,
almost wish I didn't have all this stuff next weekend to do just so I could watch the fucking show.
right? Yeah, I was apprehensive after that first episode. I'm like, well, we decided we were going to do this. It's only 6 episodes. Hopefully, it doesn't suck. And it's like I thought this episode was great, and I was in. And
Same.
now I care. After the first episode, I didn't really care about them yet, but I care about Navarro now, and I care. I think I care about Danvers.
Yeah.
I like Kavik and some of the other people in town.
Yeah, I
I
like
like
Kavik a
Rose.
lot too.
I like Kavik and Rose quite a bit.
Yeah, Rose, definitely. Well, okay. Until next week for Murderboard and the Horror Vision, I'm Sean.
And I'm Missy.
And don't play on the ice, boys and girls.
A pandemic of violence floods the streets of major cities as cases of the media-dubbed murder virus, MV20, soar, causing those infected to go on killing sprees. Caught in the middle, police detective Angela Miller finds her only trustworthy ally in the self-proclaimed psychic PI, Gerald Henry. As the two try to navigate the violence, they are drawn into New Age guru Abramelin Harvest's plot to heal the planet. Harvest's missive?
The world is sick, and humanity is the infection.
The cure? Murder. From the twisted mind of Sean C. Baker, author of A Collection of Desires, and Shadow Play in Book 1, Kim and Jesse, comes his most vicious novel yet, Murder Virus. Available